I didn't hear it start recording. Good morning. It is the 22nd of July, 2021, and we are going to have a wonderful Toastmasters meeting this morning. Welcome everyone to our meeting. We're going to start off today's meeting with an invocation. And our invocator this morning is supposed to be our inspirational Dave Licata. Oh my goodness, he is going to knock this out of the park. Go ahead, Dave.
Good morning, everybody. I have a set of simple instructions that I hope you will find inspiring to get you through the day, also the week, the month, and perhaps the whole year. Compliment 3 people every day. Have a dog. Watch a sunrise at least once a year. Remember other people's birthdays. Overtip the breakfast waitress. Have a firm handshake. Look people in the eye. Say thank you, and say it a lot. Say please a lot. Learn to play a musical instrument. Sing in the shower. Learn to make great chili. Plant flowers every spring. Own a great stereo system. And be the first to say hello. Hello, AM Lockport. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dave. I still need to get a cup of coffee. It's one of the first things I'm going to do as soon as I get a chance. We're going to go right into the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you'd like to make sure you're muted, I will lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning, I saw the topic for the first time. I was a little oblivious this week as to what the topic was going to be. And then I'm like, all the jingles from the 1970s came into my head as I was a child, and all the little family road trips, taking advantage of those opportunities. So I'm really happy to introduce our Toastmaster for the today, Mr. Phil Russell, who will be introducing roles and conducting the meeting. Phil Russell, everyone. Phil, you're muted.
Technology. It's a wonderful thing when it works. When it doesn't, well, it doesn't. Good morning. I am going to start off with a question. There's a slogan called "I love New York." Who was the individual that brought this to the state of New York? Does anyone know? Who started it? I'll give you a hint. Quick hint. He's from Lockport.
Phil Russell.
No.
Dave Licata.
Bill Miller.
No.
Dave Kenney.
Matt Murphy.
David is correct. It was Matt Murphy. Big Matt. He was a tire salesman. Then he was elected to the legislature. And he was the one that came up with this idea and got the ball rolling of I Love New York. Started right there in Lockport, New York, believe it or not. Good old Matt. His brother Don ran the insurance agency. His niece now is running that. And of course, we know the Murphys from Buffalo Bills. And if you are the salesperson, you know that the Murphys are everywhere, everywhere. You can't run around without seeing a Murphy. But let's start with the I Love New York campaign. It just simply was a logo to bring people to New York. That's all he wanted to do. And Matt was a great guy, knew everybody, was glad handing any, the consummate politician was Matt Murphy. But he's the one that brought up I Love New York. Now let's get on to the word. The word, where is she? I'm looking here amongst this stuff. Where is Beth, our word master?
I'm here.
All right, there, I see you over on the right. Second one down.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster. The word I have chosen for today might seem a little odd for the theme, but I don't think so. It is boundary, which is something that indicates limits. We have a boundary between our state and other states. We have a boundary between our state and Canada. And also, I found it very interesting in kind of looking up that word. I found that Wall Street, found in New York City, actually took its name from a wooden boundary the Dutch had built to keep out the Native Americans. It was only standing from 1685 to 1699, but I just thought that was very kind of interesting trivia. And I hope that you use the word of the day. I will put the definition in the chat. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Beth. We appreciate that. Now, I have a great boundary up here in Wilson. It's called Lake Ontario. Keeps the Canadians from invading us. I told them they're always welcome to invade, as long as they bring a lot of Labatt's Blue with them, because they are known for their breweries up there. Now, who's our master? Oh, Jen Zappala. I see Jen over there down in the bottom right-hand corner. Jen, how about giving us a story on what you're going to do as master?
Well, hopefully nothing. If you all do an excellent job today, then I will just be sitting here twiddling my thumbs. But more than likely, I will be counting your ums, ahs, so's, and other filler words as necessary. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Madam Master. I have to watch it because I have a plethora of ahs at times. It's just that filler word drives me crazy. Now, let's move on. We have a grammarian. You see, one of the worst things I do is with my grammar. I botch it all the time. I confuse everything. I make up all these stupid words and things like that. Tom Moran, my cousin, is going to set us straight on what is the proper use of the English language. Tom Moran.
Well, thank you, Cousin Phil. I sometimes have a difficult time with grammar, and I never really was comfortable with grammar until I didn't think I knew it really well until I was in 5th grade, and one of my teachers was giving a quiz in class. She was going around and pointing at different students and asking them questions about the English language. And I always sat in the back because I really didn't want to get picked on to answer a question, but I did really well. She asked this question. She said, "Give me 2 pronouns." And she looked at the back of the room, and I said, "Who? Me?" And I passed that quiz. So, so since then, I've always thought, well, maybe I'm pretty good at grammar. So I will be keeping track of people's grammar this morning. I'll be listening carefully. I'll be making some notes, and I'll be hopefully pointing out all of the good grammar that we've used throughout the meeting when you call upon me, Mr. Cousin Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that we've got the grammar out of the way, the ahs out of the way, and we have a word, now we have to have a quote. And we're welcoming back because we hadn't seen him for a while, and now he's getting back right into the swing of things. Jim Wilkerson. Jim Wilkerson, give us a quote for today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have a quote from Garrison Keillor. "I love New York, and I'm drawn to a certain intensity of life. but I've just never felt like I want to escape from the Midwest. A writer lives a great deal in his own head, and so intuitively finds places where your head is more clear. New York is one of those places. Garrison Keillor.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we have a jester, and our jester is now going to make a nice joke, we hope, about our New York, because there's always been a lot of bad things said about it. Now, one good thing about New York, now is Buffalo the city of good neighbors? Is that what we are? I think. We're going to lose our good neighbor Toronto Blue Jays. They're going to have our last game, and they're going back up to the North Country. And as my sister said about going to a Blue Jays game up in Toronto, if you go to the New York Yankees or you go to the Boston Red Sox game and you bump into somebody, they're pushing you, shoving you, just watch out where you're going. They yell at you, they scream at you, they're really rude. You go to Toronto and you bump into somebody accidentally and they will apologize. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't going to stand here on purpose. Well, they are so nice up in Toronto. All right, Jerry, keep it clean. I know you will. Dr. Gerald Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters and fellow Toastmasters. I hope I don't cross any boundaries with these jokes today. Got a few for you. Why did the librarian get kicked off the plane? Because it was overbooked. The airline lost my luggage, so I tried to sue them. Did I win? Unfortunately not. I lost the case. How do you recognize a friendly lake? It waves. That's what I have for you, Toastmasters. Hope it lightened up your day.
All right. Well, I live near that nice lake, which is our boundary to the north, and it waves all the time. It does not stop waving. It's a wonderful place to go and just sit and relax and watch the waves come in. Now, let's move on. We have a timer. And appropriately, up in the upper left-hand corner of my screen is Larry Mckenzie. And Larry is going to tell us a little bit about timing. Larry, go ahead. Larry Mckenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of being the timer. Now, as the Rolling Stones had said at one time, time is on your side. Today, that may not be the case because there are some boundaries when you are speaking. Today, table topics, 1.5 minutes to 2.5, or 2 minutes and 15, somewhere in there. I'll give you a yellow, a red, and a green, and I don't know what order they're going to come in, but they'll show up somewhere in there. And our speakers will be speaking 5 to 7 minutes unless I am told otherwise. And our evaluators today will be evaluating our speakers, and they will be speaking for 2 minutes. 2.5 will be the yellow and 3 will be the red. Stay within the boundary of the times, or you may be getting the hook and sent to Toronto with the Blue Jays. And the only thing bad about the Blue Jays, when you go up there, they are very nice, unless you're wearing a Yankees jersey. And then, not so nice. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Before I go on to the tech and gesture master, I am missing a table topics master. And David is Michael in Studio B. And if not, I need a backup. And Sylvia was knocked out of one job. Sylvia, would you like to take on table topics?
I will help out.
All right, that's great. If Michael shows up, we'll throw it back at him. But if not, you got the job. Thank you so much.
You're
Now,
welcome.
our tech and gesture master is Jill Roaring. And where is Jill? Jill, I'm looking, oh, up in the right-hand corner with Stephen. And on my screen, Jill, what does the tech and gesture master do?
Public speaking in general, is much more than just talking. It is what's your environment around you and what your actions portray while you are speaking. I will be talking about that at the end of the meeting and reporting how everyone has done. That is my job.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jill. Now, our beloved guest from the Carolinas, our quiz master. Now, David, I do have to ask this. Growing up, originally from the New York area, someplace, or up in the Northeast, or always from the Carolinas? Now, being from that area and all the pirates and the ocean, how many times have you heard the thing about Davy Jones' locker? And he's our quiz master.
Like 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time is Davy Jones from the Monkees.
Oh.
One or the other.
So what's your job, David?
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. And as Phil mentioned, I'm coming to you from North Carolina, where there are many boundaries between us. And I will be listening to interesting and witty information to quiz you at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. All right. Now, table topics. Well, guess what? Sylvia is thrown into the spotlight on this one because she has volunteered to do table topics. And this gives our people that are not speaking or not evaluators or do not have a job a chance to speak extemporaneously. Are you ready, Sylvia?
I am.
All right. Take it away, Sylvia.
Unfortunately, the 3 questions are going to be more like 1 or 2 questions for 3 people this morning. And please remember, use the word of the day, boundary or boundaries, whichever one fits into your off-the-cuff speech. Len, how are you this morning? Traveling in New York State, have you done a lot of that? And what is your favorite spot in New York? Len Thornton.
Thank you, Madam Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters. I think I've traveled a fair amount in New York State. Never enough. One memorable trip was last fall, where I met up with my girlfriend who lives in Harrisburg in Ithaca, and we explored for my first time all the waterfalls in the area. The weather was beautiful. Waterfalls were incredible. Got a lot of hiking in, a lot of steps on my Fitbit. Some beautiful photos. Of course, we enjoyed some nice dinners and wine. It was a very delightful weekend. I haven't been to Lake Placid in quite a while. Probably since 1992, when I rode my bike up there, 435 miles from Niagara Falls to Lake Placid on a American Lung Association bike trek. That was quite memorable. New York, way too long since I've been in New York City. Various other places around New York I've been. It is a wonderful state. It's just incredible, the resources, the scenery that we have here to take it all in. Although I will say one of the most boring roads in existence is the I-90, traveling east to west or west to east. It just goes so slowly. It's nice that it's straight, relatively flat, but it really grates on you when you're driving hour after hour. So you have to stop and break up the trip a little bit here and there. That's my experience traveling in New York State, Madam Topic Master.
Thank you. Larry Acker. We know sports is big in New York, Western New York, and I think the whole state of New York. Tell us your favorite story, and are you a Yankees or Mets fan? I know Mark is a Mets fan. are you Yankees fan, Mets fan? And could you tell us a story regarding New York if you went to a game?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Excuse me, just rolled out of bed. So I'm just catching up. My body's catching up to my mind here. I'm not a baseball fan. So I'm going to change it a little bit to hockey because that's always been my sport ever since I was little. That's all I ever played. And even today, even though I'm 60 years old, it's still my favorite sport, although my body can't take the abuse like it used to. My favorite story about hockey would probably be some of the Buffalo Sabres games that I was lucky enough to attend, and probably the one that stands out the most. And I should say, first of all, that New York State has some great sports teams. You know, I'm limited to Buffalo, obviously, but I know there are some fans, Yankees fans here from the other end of the state. But the biggest memory I ever had was going to a Buffalo Sabres game. And if you can remember the boundaries of the rink, there's boards and there's glass, and they were playing the Boston Bruins this particular day. And I was, oh my God, early teens, and we had season tickets, and we were playing the Bruins anyway, and it was always a big rivalry. And Jim Schoenfeld, who actually was from Lockport, lived here many years. He was a defenseman on the team, and he was also the enforcer. And Wayne Cashman was the enforcer for the Bruins. And there are some people that might remember these two gentlemen. Anyway, so Jim Schoenfeld smashed Cashman through the boards where the Zamboni came out, and they actually had a fist fight off the rink where the Zamboni drives in, and they fought on the concrete. And for some reason, that's one of the ones that always sticks in my head. It was kind of a cool thing. Never saw it before in any kind of sports. It's certainly not hockey. And in the end, the Sabres did win. Bobby Orr also got beat up by Jim Schoenfeld and Terry O'Reilly. So it wound up being a great game. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, I love hockey too. I'm in between hockey and baseball. Mark, we know you like the Mets, and you could probably tell me many stories about the Mets, but I'm not going to ask you about the Mets. How about a football team in New York State? I know we have only one.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. Good to see you all. So with regard to football, see, you're in my wheelhouse now when we're talking about sports, so filling up the time won't be a problem here. But growing up as a football fan, I was a Giants fan, and I still love the Giants. Now, let's not get technical. I know they play in New Jersey, but they're closer to Midtown Manhattan than Orchard Park probably is to Buffalo, but it's just a mere technicality. But it was just in New York, it's a funny thing because here in Buffalo, everybody's on the same side. Pretty much everybody's a Bills fan. So that's the way it goes. In New York, you have two teams in every sport, so you pick one or the other. I happen to pick the Giants probably because I liked blue more than the Jets green. And as it turned out, they were a pretty successful team. I won't bring up Super Bowl 25. At the time, I was in Queens. And even though I liked the Bills, I was fond of them, I was rooting pretty hard for the Giants. And someday I'll probably build a speech around that, the view from the other side of that particular game. But once I escaped the boundaries of New York City and I moved to upstate, to Buffalo area, of course, I have really adopted the Bills quite a bit. And I have to say my loyalties are probably leaning more towards the Bills than the Giants at this point in time. I was really into last season. I thought the Bills had a look of a team of destiny, and I have to say I was really bummed with that loss in the championship game, but I do believe better days are ahead. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mark. I knew I was safe with sports questions. Okay, can we have a word master, Beth? How did the word do? Boundary.
Sylvia, well, 2 out of 3. said the word. I did not hear Len say the word. I'm not sure
He
if he
did.
did, but I didn't hear him. But Larry and Mark both used the word correctly.
Okay, Phil, did you hear if you were putting your finger up?
I thought I heard Lenny say it.
I
Didn't
may
you
have
say?
squeezed it in the beginning.
You did, very beginning. It was
Okay.
about, yeah, he did. I heard that.
Okay.
And Larry Mckenzie with time.
Thank you very much, Madam Table Topics Master. Our three speakers today stayed within the boundaries of their time limits. Len spoke for 1 minute and 45 seconds. Larry Eggert, 2:08. He was our winner with the 2:08. And Mark Campbell's 1 minute and 53 seconds. All three qualify.
Okay, I'm going to send this over to Phil.
Thank you very much. Sylvia, I have to compliment you. You know, just coming in and doing this on the spur of the moment, you did a phenomenal job. You picked the right people. I mean, you did it all. I can't say enough about it. Now, as we move on, before I get into our most important person that I have to introduce, I have to have a toast. So grab your cups. There we go. Grab your cups. Now, this toast is to the deceased Matt Murphy for thinking up such a great idea as I love New York, because it really is a catchy phrase. To Matt Murphy.
He has a way about him.
Now, I have to introduce the most important person in the world today. He is our general evaluator. And yes, I can suck up to him all the time, simply because that's the job of the Toastmaster, because he'll be evaluating me. And as I introduce the evaluators, he will be evaluating them. Now, Mr. General Evaluator, Steve Smith, tell us your job.
Well, as you have just stated, my job today is to evaluate the evaluators, evaluate the Toastmaster, that's you, Phil, and the general tone of the meeting. I already had it in my notes that you forgot to introduce me. Now I can just say you did get back to it, but we'll take that up later.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Yes, it was interesting. Did anybody actually know Matt Murphy? I see a raise of hands. Do you realize this man was a huge man, and he would come to the boathouse, and in the fall, it would be a little chilly along the lake. Now, Matt was a big man. He had to be 6'5", about 400 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. He was a big, big man. And when he walked in the room, you knew he was there. One, by size and by the personality, because he wanted to speak with everyone. It was amazing. And when he brought this idea of I love New York to the legislator and got it through both houses and to the governor, now look what it's done. People are begging to have the logo I love New York on whatever they're doing. If they're doing a trifold, they want that logo on there. They definitely want it on there because that gives them credibility. It's amazing what that man did. So let's move on now. We're going to do some speaking. We're going to have the evaluators tell us what this speech is about. Our first speaker is going to be Moklis. Moklis, when I was introduced to Moklis, he said, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Phil,
And
I
it was,
think we can
yeah.
switch around, but I'm first speaker before you jump in. I
Yes.
want to hear everything you want to say about Moklis too, but I don't want us to get thrown off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misread you're right. I apologize. Good thing you told me that. I'll get back to Moklis. And I had your introduction already too, Kate. But let's talk about Kate. Kate will be what a faux pas. Kate will be evaluated by Thomas Heldwine. Thomas, your job is to evaluate Kate Banks, or who is so busy doing her Celtic Festival, which I look forward to celebrate our birthdays. And would you please introduce Kate? Tom Heldwine.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I've had my coffee and I'm awake. So this is Katie's second path, persuasive influence. It's a level 1 speech evaluation and feedback. For the timer, it's 5 to 7 minutes. Those are the boundaries she has to conform to. As I said, this is her second path, level 1. The topic of the stars and the night sky has long fascinated many of us. We have the distinct pleasure of having an astronomer, Stephen Smith, in our chapter, sharing his knowledgeable speeches and fascinating star shows that he hosts together with Jill, held most recently at our member Margot's beautiful winery grounds. Last week, we explored our national parks as our theme. And Katie mentioned her recent trip to Big Bend National Park in isolated West Texas along the Rio Grande River as a marvel in many ways. The area is an internationally designated dark sky park. What does that mean? Let's explore together with Katie in today's first speech, Starry Nights, Preserving Our Dark Sky. Katie Orr.
Thank you. Less than 100 years ago, everyone could look up and see a spectacular night sky. Now, millions of children across the globe will never experience the Milky Way where they live. Many barely see stars ever, if at all. Today's theme is I Love New York. Some people not from here just presume we are all from New York City, one of the largest and brightest cities on the planet, a city that never sleeps, lights on 24/7. Well, there's a lot more to the state of New York. Along with many of you here today, I grew up in this area of rural Niagara County, New York. And then I was a college student in a small town along the St. Lawrence River, just north of the Adirondack Mountains. There in the mountains, I viewed starscapes like I never had experienced at home. I grew up in the countryside north of the city of Lockport, but surrounded here in Lockport by Niagara Falls, the cities of Niagara Falls and Buffalo and Toronto, all within 30 miles, plus countless towns and small cities, giving us a constant orange glow on our night sky horizon. Being in rural mountains are altogether different, as are being in the deserts. 2 weeks ago, I was awestruck by the starscapes I viewed in the desert isolation of West Texas at Big Bend National Park, a designated dark sky park. It made me wonder just what that meant. So I dug deeper. The International Dark Sky Association was founded 33 years ago in the United States as a nonprofit organization incorporated by professional astronomers and amateurs. The mission of the IDA is to preserve and protect the nighttime environment and our heritage of dark skies through quality outdoor lighting. The picture behind me is the Rio Grande River. This is the canyon of Santa Elena. This side is Mexico. This side is Texas. And the starry nights, that's not just what's viewed by special telescopes and cameras. It's phenomenal. The increased and widespread use of artificial light at night is not only impairing our human view of the universe and night sky, it is adversely affecting our environment, our safety, our energy consumption, and our health. With rising awareness on the importance of the dark sky in the night, astronauts and national organizations have created areas away from interference in artificial light. And these areas exist in categories such as communities, even towns, reserves, preserves, and sanctuaries. It's fascinating to be digging deeper. You'll be hearing me talk more about this in the future. IDA was the first organization in the dark sky movement and is currently the largest, with thousands of members worldwide. 20 years ago, the IDA established the International Dark Sky Places program back in 2001 to recognize excellent stewardship of the night sky. Designations are based on stringent outdoor lighting standards and innovative community outreach. The principal approach is to raise awareness about the value of dark, star-filled night skies and encourage their protection and restoration through education about the problems and the solutions, including outdoor lighting practices that create less light pollution. By 10 years ago, in 2011, the organization had about 5,000 members in 70 countries. It has doubled since then in the last decade. I haven't joined yet. Since the program began, more than 100 parks, communities, reserves, and sanctuaries crossing boundaries around the world have received International Dark Sky Place designations. In the United States alone, there are over 60 dark sky parks and various locations in various states. Dark sky parks help astronomers in studying the night skies and for stargazers who wish to enjoy the night. Starry skies are a vanishing treasure because light pollution is washing away our view of the cosmos. Today is part one of two-part speech. Let's today just delve a little into what is light pollution. Most of us are familiar with air, water, and land pollution, but did you know that light can be a pollutant? Light pollution is a silent threat and the result of outdoor lighting that is not properly shielded, allowing light to shine into the eyes and the night sky. Direct light that shines into your eyes is called glare, and light directed into the night sky is called sky glow. All of us have neighbors, most of us have neighbors who also give us light trespass, or maybe we do it, or maybe the street lights do it. That's when unwanted light enters into your yard, your windows, those bright lights from nearby. Light pollution is a continuous reality for many cities around the world. This has led to disruptions in the nocturnal environment for plants, animals, and humans. This is interrupting the natural night-day cycle that we've lived with for millennia. Light pollution is, of course, a side effect of industrial civilization. It includes building exterior and interior lighting, advertising, commercial properties, offices, factories, sporting venues, and streetlights. The fact is, much outdoor lighting used at night is inefficient, overly bright, poorly targeted, improperly shielded, and in many cases, completely unnecessary. This light and the electricity used to create it is being wasted by spilling it into the sky rather than focusing it on the actual objects and areas that people want illuminated for safety. It threatens astronomy and disrupts wildlife and affects human health. Fortunately, concern about light pollution is rising dramatically. A growing number of scientists, homeowners, environmental groups, and civic leaders are taking action to restore the natural night. Each of us can also implement practical solutions to combat this light pollution locally, nationally, and internationally. But start at home. You can help. I'm going to put some links in the chat so you can follow up. Find out how bad light pollution is where you live. You can look at a World Atlas map. Find out about data collected by citizen scientists or join in. To conclude this part one speech, for 3 billion years, life on Earth has existed in a rhythm of light and dark. Now, artificial lights overpower the darkness. We can bring back the night to the planet Earth while being smarter and safer. Until next time, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and my fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Kate. I want you now to take 2 minutes, put into the text some comments for Kate. The reason being is she would like to have some feedback as to how she did. So we'll have about 1.5 minutes now of silence so you can put in some comments to Kate. All right, that was a perfect ending to that. Thank you, whoever did that. Thank you so much. Now, I really goofed up on the introduction over. I printed out the schedule here. And of course, I didn't have my cheaters on. And I overlooked speaker number 1 and Kate. And that was a big faux pas on my part. But now we'll move on to speaker number 2. And Moklis is going to give us a speech. I will let the evaluator introduce Moklis. But I wanted to mention before, when I first met Moklis, I did not know how to pronounce his name. And he said, Smokeless. And that helped me out tremendously just in the pronunciation, because I could be terrible at names. I can butcher anything. Now, speaker number 2 is Moklis, and our evaluator I will introduce now is going to be Jackie. Jackie, she's always, she thought maybe she had interrupted. No, it was my own faux pas. Anything anybody else had to do with it. It's my fault, my bad. All right, let's introduce Jackie, who will introduce Moklis.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Moklis, of course, is an experienced speaker, a DTM. He's working in the dynamic leadership path. He's doing an elective this morning, and his purpose is to practice writing and delivering a speech that inspires others in an enthusiastic manner and builds a strong rapport with the audience. I look forward to this 5 to 7 minute speech. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jackie. Moklis is doing a 5 to 7. I will give you the title. Smokeless. Inspired Dreams. Inspired Dreams by Moklis Rahman. Take it away, Moklis.
I love New York. I've spent almost 22 years in the state of New York, besides living other places. And Canada is one of the friendliest neighbor on our boundary. How do you go to Carnegie Hall? Practice. What did my father teach me? Learning is from cradle to grave. Third quote I will add is, if you give someone a fish, he will eat for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, he'll be able to feed himself and family and others for his whole life. How do you inspire? Mr. Toastmaster, Madam Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters. Title of my speech is Inspire Dreams. I will share with you 3 events or stories of my life related to inspiration. I'll use some slides with share screen to elaborate on them. So hopefully I can get my system working. My first event is a helicopter trip to my family's deep rural establishment called the Lankakala High School. This is a scene of of the crowd that I was able to address when I visited that few years back. This is a departure view from the airport. Inside the helicopter, the pilot, and this is the arrival. Also more people, students, parents, community who gathered. Some ceremonies. Visiting the ancestral home. This is the departure time. Shows the effect of the helicopter wind. So why did I visit this school with the helicopter? Giving money is one thing, but to be able to inspire dreams among the children was the main reason of my trip. This was, of course, a long-term planning over maybe 3-4 years, but it's something even more close to us that we can do a lot. Is the Toastmasters Youth Leadership Program. I had the privilege of conducting a program in Toledo, Ohio, with about 20 high school students. And it was quite an experience to see and work to inspire these young minds to dream big. Some of them may become like Tesla, or some of them may become great inventors, business leaders of the community. So I'm having a little difficulty with my presentation skills of slides. This is the picture of the high school students that I wanted to share as part of my activities to inspire dreams. And if I can get back, it's almost 6 minutes, 23 seconds. The next program I did was Junior Achievement. And that was also a program that I enjoyed a lot over several years. How many of you know about Junior Achievement? It's a program to teach young minds about business and economics. And I had the privilege to teach a second grade, third, fourth, and fifth grade to inspire dreams. This is a group photo with the second grade students. What do you have to inspire among your family, friends, and community? inspire dreams. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Moklis. I want you to take 2 minutes again to give some comments to Moklis. And we'll just be quiet and let you write your comments into the chat. Thank you. Time to move on. Now, there's 3 speakers, 3, not 2, but 3. I can't goof up number 3 because it's the only one left. I already did my duties on goofing up the other one. David Licata is going to be our 3rd speaker, and he will be evaluated. And I will have Margot Sue Bittner, his evaluator, tell you about what David is going to be doing. On to Margot.
Thank you, Toastmaster Phil. On a note, though, on your topic today, for those who may not know it, just before the pandemic hit in 2020, the Winery at Margin Manor was declared the 8th most haunted place in New York State by I Love New York. So if you go to their haunted trail, you'll see us listed there. Now, David was kind enough to email me the boundaries of what his speech was going to be today. He is in there's an for you, innovative planning pathway, and he is on level 3. So for his speech, he is going to be using descriptive language. His speech time is 5 to 7, and I believe you have his title, Phil.
Yes, I do.
I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. David will be giving that 5 to 7 minute speech. He's going to be trying to also give us some inspiration and moving on into the future. David's title is Zoom to Doom. David Licata.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, there's a buzz in the air. And that buzz comes from the fact that employers want the employees back in the office. Now, we all have been relying on these wonderful modern marvels of technology. But why do they want them back in the office? They want them back in the office because things get done quicker. Problems are resolved. Disputes are settled. And new ideas are born. What they found out is that Zoom is a boundary to this progress. That is what happened. What the situation is that with all great haste, I want AM Lockport to be back in the presence of their brother and sister Toastmasters. Because I believe that we're missing a lot of opportunities when we're not face to face. I think that when we do evaluations in Toastmasters, We find out that when we are face to face, we can notice things that are more subtle. And that makes evaluations better. And better evaluations make better speakers. That is my contention. Now, the reason that AM Lockport has been so successful is that we have been very loyal to the Toastmasters pledge. And what we've been most successful at is evaluations. And I believe in-person evaluations are better than Zoom evaluations. What we've always done in AM Lockport, because of the strength of our evaluations, is that when we're done evaluating a speaker, that speaker can't wait to speak again. We've always been very encouraging, and I believe face-to-face will help us to stay on that path now that we've all gone down pathways. Can you imagine FDR, Teddy Roosevelt, and Winston Churchill on Zoom? Somebody leaning into their laptop screen and going, what was that, Winnie? What about never so few? I didn't quite get it. Also, I believe that in Zoom, we've become too reliant on screen sharing and slideshows. Ladies and gentlemen, a slideshow is not a speech. And as we found out over and over again, and I'm the first one to bring this up, even when we're meeting in person, is that technology sometimes wishes to cross you up and make things harder than they should be. And getting back to this idea about slideshows, true Toastmasters paint their thrills, their sunsets, their accomplishments with words. Words are the whole key to Toastmastering. And if we're too reliant on technology and we're too reliant on slideshows, we lose that. This is about the power of words, how to use words, how to keep our skills sharp. And most of all, when we speak, how to sound sure of ourselves. That's why we have our masters. Because when we speak and we want to sell an idea and we want to be persuasive, the last thing we want to do is sound unsure of ourselves. Once again, in person, we'll get that instant feedback. We'll feel better about ourselves. So I want to urge you, let's get back to Tom's Diner as quickly as we can. Let's see each other in person. Let's get Mike Reinbold back in this club. Let's see how Edna's doing after 18 months. But most of all, my brother and sister Toastmasters, let's get back to real applause, because this is driving me crazy. And we all know how badly good old Dave needs applause. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, David. I want you now. We will take another 2 minutes. And you can send a note to Dave, good, bad, or ugly. That's what we can do in this 2 minutes. Evaluate Dave. Oops. I'm missing my music. All right, I think we have enough time. I am now going to move on to our evaluators. And I hope our evaluators have had enough time. You want to go ahead? I hope our evaluators had enough time to put their thoughts together and are able to give a good evaluation. I'm sure they will. I am now going to introduce our first evaluator, evaluating Kate, Tom Heldwine. Tom, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, and anyone who is looking at us on YouTube today. There is a wonderful example of how to take a story and add research to it to make it that much more. She paced us through it. She gave us pauses at times to think about the questions that she asked us. I found it very revealing, more information than I could actually take in. I'm going to have to watch it again to take it all in and try and gather all that information into myself and know more about the subject, maybe even look it up further. She's got me interested. That was a well-crafted speech. One of the things that I would like to see, if she's going to redo this speech or have a part 2, is eye contact. I saw that it was, your notes were off to the side, and often there was a lot, like I said, a lot of information, which is hard to practice. You want to make sure you hit all the different points. And I'm not sure exactly how to do that with a speech like that, but I know you could probably work on maybe having the notes more centralized or just above the camera or behind the camera. Maybe your mother can be there as Studio B over there and having like cue cards and, you know, taking them down just like we see on live television. You see the cue card guy. And it helps you with eye contact that way. And you had that wonderful picture of the night sky. I would have loved to have seen a distance difference where you went back and you said, look at how large and wonderful the sky is, which because of the distance and the amount of information, gestures would definitely be wanted to be incorporated. Right there on the cue cards or in your notes where it's like point left, point right. And since this is a evaluation and feedback speech where you take the evaluation and feedback in, I hope that I'm your evaluator next time, because I know you're going to take all this in and everyone's individual that they sent you and incorporate it into the speech. And I'd like to know what those things are. Overall, like I said, more information than I could pack in a 5-minute speech. Well done, well paced. And you had a background and pictures, not overdone, not overwhelming. I hope that your next speech even can come close to this one because it was really well done. Thank you. And we're not doing Mr. Evaluator. I'm going back to the Toastmaster, Mr. Toastmaster Phil.
Thank you. All right, another faux pas. That's two big ones. I need a timer's report for our speeches. Sorry about that. Mr. Timer, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Today, our boundaries were almost extended beyond our time limits. Today, Kate spoke for 7 minutes and 30 seconds, 0.29, but we won't go with the 0.29. And we'll say that 7 minutes and 30. So she qualified right on the cusp. Following right behind her was Moklas. Moklas, 7 minutes and 25 seconds. Kate beat you by 5 seconds. And coming in at a slightly less time, 5 minutes and 50 seconds, Mr. Dave Licata. All three qualify.
Thank you. And then it'll be a vote be putting up here in a second. So please vote for your favorite speaker or who you felt did the best job. Now let's move on to our second evaluator. Let's move on to our second evaluator, and that will be Jackie Kenney. Take it away, Jackie.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters. So this morning we heard a distinguished Toastmaster speak. Moklis gave us 3 wonderful aphorisms to lead off his speech. My favorite was, learning is from cradle to grave. That's what Toastmasters is all about. Using slides to enhance your speech can be a good idea. Sorry, Dave, it can be, but it needs to be smooth. And I think Moklis needs to practice that a little more. Those were wonderful, informative pictures from around the world. You had a little difficulty, which you acknowledged. Again, more practice. But your title, Inspired Dreams, you shared with us your enjoyment in working with young people. And this, in my estimation, is an example of dynamic leadership through Toastmasters. I don't know how there would be a better way of showing an example of dynamic leadership. Those kids' faces showed us a lot about how you inspired them, working with them. And those of us who have done Toastmaster projects with kids realize what a wonderful way that is to share the things that we've learned and to bring kids into the Toastmaster world. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that with them and with us and letting us know how much you enjoyed inspiring others. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jackie. Let's move on to our third evaluator now, Margot Sue Bittner. Margot, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters, and of course, Dave. Dave's goal today was to use descriptive language. He opened with his title, Zoom to Doom, and the phrases I wrote down, I have a whole list of buzz, the modern marvels. Even using the word of the day, Zoom is a boundary, gives you a wonderful feel for how Dave is. And I guess, Dave, we know exactly how you feel about it, but we've talked about that before. Dave reflected in his speech the fact that he is the elder statesman of the club. And sometimes the elder statesman tells us things that are hard to hear, but he did it with a kind tone. He did it with emphasis, and it was one of the most heartfelt speeches I've ever heard Dave give. The other assets he brought to it was his own experience. He owned a business. He worked with employees, and so he could take that into it and give us another view of it. His history with our club. He pulled the Toastmasters pledge into his speech. Isn't that a great way to bring us back to our roots and make everyone here think about why are we here and what are we doing? And I loved his concrete examples, especially his imitation of Winston Churchill. I thought that added just a great punch to the speech. But to veer in a couple of improvements, your gestures were not what they normally are, Dave, but then again, you're on Zoom, you're trying to stay in one place. Your eye contact with your camera was great, which I'm not doing right now well because I'd rather see your face, so I'm really looking at you. I loved your gesture when you talked about the applause because, yeah, it's not the same as hearing that clapping sound. We need that sound. So you pulled in a lot of things. Maybe to improve it also, you would have wanted to take a couple phrases from the pledge and throw them in. So for example, to treat fellow club members and our guests with respect and courtesy. One thing we've improved on is not using the chat during speeches. I thought that could have been pulled in. The other thing you missed was we don't bring guests as much, which we all miss. But you energized us. You gave us a wonderful word picture. You said, I believe, I think. You made sure we knew this was your opinion and you're trying to guide us to the way that we should be heading. I love the personal touch of where's Mike? Where's Edna? That just pulled it more into my heart to say we really have to get back. And your call to action in the end, let's meet in person Yay, Dave. Thank you for today's speech.
Thank you, Margot. Oh, I need a timer's report. I don't want to make a third faux pas.
Well, well, well. Today, Mr. Toastmaster, I had the pleasure of timing our evaluators along with our speakers and our table topics. Our evaluators today, Thomas Houdwine, 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Jackie, 1 minute and 55 seconds. And Margot, 2 minutes and 44 seconds. All three qualify within the boundaries of our time. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. He will put up the balloting because all three qualify. I now am going to turn this meeting over to our general evaluator. He will be able to evaluate me and my faux pas and the evaluators. And I will give him the opportunity to either introduce the job holders after he's done his evaluation, or he can turn it back to me. That will be up to you because you will have the control of the meeting, Mr. General Evaluator. Take it away, Steve.
Well, thank you, Phil. I will turn it back over to you to call for reports because I don't have a list of who's doing the jobs today in front of me, and I'm sure you do. So let's give you a heads up on that. Well, meeting got started on time. Good. You had a few holes to fill. You jumped in and asked for someone to fill in for table topics. You got that taken care of. However, the first thing I had written down here, which you did correct after a time, was you failed to introduce your general evaluator, me. But you did correct that. So good for that. And then you had a little mix up with your speaker order, even though you had your notes right in front of you, but you found that and well, actually Kate found it for you, but you did correct that. And all the problems, you just kept moving forward, which is the sign of a true Toastmaster, moving through smoothly on everything. Overall, you had an interesting theme. I love New York. We usually add to that, I love New York, pay toll. And I did not know the history of where that came from, so I found that filler interesting. Now to get on to our evaluators. I was pleased with all three evaluations. Now, Katie, you're preaching to the choir here. Everything Shady said, her information was all spot on. And I like Tom Hellwine's evaluation because he didn't dwell on the facts, but on her presentation, what she did right, where she needed improvement and different things. That was a very good evaluation. It would have been, I would have had a tough time with that because I would have been editorializing about what I think about dark skies. So that was kudos for that. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh, Jackie Kennedy. Jackie did a nice evaluation of MOOC list, pointing out good points and bad points. And even though you practice with the technology, I, of all people, will tell you, it doesn't always do what it's supposed to do. So you do what you have to do to try to keep moving forward. That's part of the fun of working in this format, is fighting with the technology. Fun, fun, fun. Let's see, Margot. I thought you did a good evaluation of Dave Licata, pointing out, well, not only what he could improve, but why the shortcomings of this format make that difficult to do. Dave, as you know, is a consummate speaker. He loves to work a room. Dave made one point that I agree with, because when I'm doing an evaluation, part of what I'm looking at is the audience reaction to the speaker. That tells me a lot about how the speaker's doing. You got the audience? Are they looking at their watch or playing with something else? That tells me a lot about your speech and how well you're going over. So I do miss that. And having said all that, she did a good job of evaluating without editorializing again too much, which we're really not supposed to do in evals, but you almost can't help it because it's part and parcel of analyzing the speech. Now, overall, the meeting went well. Looks like we're doing good on time. So I will turn it back to Phil for the regular reports. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on quickly here. Let's start off with the tech and gesture master.
You're up.
Jill, you're up.
Oh, that's me.
That
All
be
right.
you.
That's me, to
Yeah.
me. As tech and gesture master, I'm finding it hard to do this job. The tech thing, well, reporting who has nice Zoom backgrounds and that sort of thing, it's getting a little boring. And quite honestly, I'm looking at my camera and my picture and I look blurry. I do not know why, what's going on with my camera. My regular camera is making everything blurry right now. It must be something to do with me. But anyhow, the technology has allowed us to do presentations a little bit differently than what we had done in the past. But it also, the Zoom process does not allow practice. I mean, I've tried it myself. Unless you can get into a Zoom meeting and sit there and practice doing this stuff, you can't practice going to screen sharing. I mean, I had a problem a few weeks ago when I did a speech with screen share. And unfortunately, nobody brought it up to me that I had a problem. If I was doing a speech in person, everybody was said, Jill, your pictures are all on the floor. I miss our gestures. I mean, what is this waving hands? I know it's the ASL thing for clapping, but we're Toastmasters. We can't master clapping without flapping our hands. Come on. I miss Marty Johnson when he slides across the floor and does things like that. We're all sitting to do our speeches. Sometimes we stand up, but even standing up, you're just standing in one spot. So am I tired of Zoom meetings? Yeah, I think so. We've also all gotten too reliant on our notes. I know Katie has, I know I have. I think I've mastered doing it a little better than Katie. I actually tape them to the screen so that just the camera sticks out. So I'm looking at the camera even though nobody knows it. I've been reading my speeches when I've done them. And I know David Jones and Tom Moran are definitely problems with coming to meetings. But I, for one, at a officers meeting back in May or very early June said, if we can't get this thing straightened out, let's at least get to Tom's Diner for a little while we're trying to figure this out. Our goal was July 1st, and we're hearing soon. I'm tired of this. I miss the written agendas. I think I said enough. Bye.
All right. I'll do my gesture. All right. Gammer, how bad did I do? Tom, where's Tom, my cousin? You can pick on me all you want. How bad do I do? Tom Moran.
I'm sorry, Phil. I had to, when you were just speaking, I had to stop and sharpen my pencil again. Really, it's down to a nub by now. Phil, I wasn't aware that you knew French, but you used the word faux pas many times this morning. I think I counted 4 uses of it. So you would be, and I mean this in the kindest way, the faux pas master today. Let's see. You said moving on to the future. Now, I would think that would be a little redundant. And also, when you were talking about faux pas, you said a big faux pas. Now, I don't think faux pas needs an attachment to it. I think faux pas is significant enough in its own. And when you get up and leave the room this morning, be careful that you don't trip on those INGs that are all over the floor there. Now, that's enough on Phil. There were some really nicely worded phrases and statements this morning, and that's what I appreciate. Mark, when he was speaking, used the word, well, although he was talking about football, he used the word wheelhouse. That's in my wheelhouse. Wheelhouse comes from, it's a nautical term that means a wheel within a wheel, and it's often used in baseball. And as the wheel gets smaller and smaller, the baseball is easier to hit. So I like that phrasing that he used. Katie, when she spoke, she was awestruck, which I liked, and I liked the light pollution. I'm not accustomed to hearing pollution and light together, but it was very nice. And nocturnal environment was a nice phrase that she used as well. Katie had the disadvantage for the grammarians aspect as being her screen was right next to Steve's screen. So I could see Steve's expressions as you were giving the speech, and he was moving in and out. He was getting kind of excited, and he was nodding his head up and down, and he was very interested in the speech. So you hit the mark as far as Steve is concerned. Moklas inspired the young minds, which I appreciate, since I've done some of those programs as well. And also, he ended in an interesting way. He ended with a rhetorical question. Rhetorical questions often used to begin a speech to get people's interest, but he used it as an ending so that we could continue that thought. David did well. His words were all very illuminating, I would say. David is an excellent speaker, and you get the impression he paints some pictures. And when he is being honest and forthright, that's when he is at his best. He's not making anything up. He's telling you what he feels. Jackie used the word aphorism. Now, that is a word that we can all add to our list of words that we use. I encourage everyone to look that up and to perhaps try to use that word sometime. Margot used the words heartfelt and energized, which was very nice in her evaluation. And Steve, when he was evaluating, doing his general evaluation, talked about speaking to the choir, which was nice. It gives a nice visual. And editorializing, I like that word. And consummating or consummate. I'm not sure so much about that word. I'm accustomed to hearing that when people get, well, you used the word consummate. Yeah. I'm used to hearing that word when people get married. So, yeah, I'm not so sure about, but it was, yeah, I guess you used your, what they call a poetic license when giving that word. That's my report, Mr. Cousin Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tom. You're giving a good example of what not to do when you evaluate me. I really appreciate that. Now we move on to the Master. Let's go, Beth. How many R's did we do?
Well, if you'd like the Master, I can give the report instead. But if you're calling on the Master, then
yeah, another faux pas.
Okay.
That's 5. Sorry, Jen.
Should have been the word of the day, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I did have some work to do today. I heard some ums and ahs and ands and so's and buts. I heard some from Thomas. Phil, I heard now. That is your favorite. And some ands and buts and wells. Mark, I did hear so, but an A. Moklas resisted the urge to fill his silence with filler, which I thought was impressive. I know I would have gone off on a tangent there myself, so I did appreciate that, but the silence did get a bit long. Margot, I heard some so's and uhs from you. Dave, a bunch of ands, so many ands. Jackie, I heard so and Steve, and now, and you have a really interesting filler. I never caught that this was a filler, but I hear it now. You do a guh, like you kind of laugh at the end of things, and it's a little filler that you do that's unique to you. Jill, I heard some anyways and a but. And Tom Moran, I had some restarts, some uhs, ands, nows, and buts. You really spread it out, you know, a little of everything you'd like to mix in there. Appreciate that. So thank you everyone for giving me something to listen to today. I will turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Phil.
Thank you, Jen. Sorry about that. I goof up a little few times here. Let's move on to the Quizmaster. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. All right. No, we just have a few minutes. So Lynn and his girlfriend went hiking, and what was their destination? What were they looking for?
Waterfalls.
Waterfalls, correct. And who is Larry Eggert's favorite baseball team?
Doesn't like baseball.
Cleveland Indians.
Trick question.
Hockey. Buffalo. Yeah. And according to Phil, Matt Murphy, where is he from?
Lockport.
There you go. And according to Kate, what is impairing our views of the stars at night?
Light pollution.
Light.
Or artificial light. And let's see, how long has Mopeless been in New York?
22 years.
There you go. And according to Dave, what do employers want?
Back to work.
Back to work. And I will segue that into so do guests at Toastmasters here in Queen City. We had 9 people in person last week at our meeting, but we have 2 to 3 guests every week because the guests want to come in person. Unfortunately, at Queen City, if a guest comes, a guest joins. So every week we're getting new members, and it's all because we're in person. So I think you all need to, like Dave said, get back into it. So back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Now I'm going to get this last one right. Beth, the word master. How are the boundaries doing?
I thought you forgot me after you tried to put me in a different position there. Our word started out a little slowly. There were, the first few people didn't really use the word or use it correctly, but we picked up the pace and a lot of people used the word. Larry Mckenzie gets the prize today for using it 4 times. Phil Russell and Kate used it twice. So good meeting for boundary today. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Now, after making all these mistakes, I'm going to turn it over to our president, Thomas Elwine. Tom, take it away.
Thank you, Phil. Wonderful meeting. I actually enjoyed it. I'm still half asleep because I haven't had my second cup of coffee yet. What I'd like to actually, since it's been mentioned a few times, is start off before we go over the winners, talk about the hybrid meeting if Katie is available.
Well, it is 8:30. I said I would do that, but why don't we do the wrap up of the meeting? And then if anybody wants to stick around, because it's 8:30.
All right.
Thanks,
Not a
Thomas.
problem. All right. Drum roll. Boom. Women ribbon winners for this morning. Table topics was a tie between Larry Eggert and Mark Campos. Yay! Our evaluator this morning, Margot Bittner. And our speaker and most beloved DTM of the entire group, our heart and soul, Dave Licata. All right, I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate the meeting, and I believe it's 8:30 and 58 seconds. So thank you everyone for being here this week. And we'll do a couple announcements after in post toasties. So please stay here.